Hi, my friends. Okay, so we are now going to the third introductory term that we want to sort of examine. And this one I will, before I promised you a lecture on geography that is going to come up as well. But so this one, this lecture, I want you to basically go into the details of it through the supplementary videos that I have put in this module, right? As well as your readings, right? So I will go on I will discuss this this third concept that we're investigating now in general here. Yes. So what is a civilization, my friends? Right now we sort of deciphered and disentangled this whole notion of Western. By the way, if I'm taping this on Tuesday, August the 25th, and last night was the first night of the Republican National Convention, and I don't know whether anybody saw it or not, but one of the speakers was telling us that Donald Trump is the bodyguard of Western civilization, right? So you see how this conceptual framework that we think, oh, it does not have any relevance to our lives in current day lives. You see how it reflects itself, what kind of a potential it has to become part of a national discourse, right, as we have it here. At any rate, so what we want to discuss, what is a civilization, my friends, right? So we have been talking about the ways in which history has been co-opted and histories have been deleted, and how Black history has been deleted from American national history, from the pages of American national history, and so on and so forth, and how histories are co-opted, and so on and so forth, right? So one of the first things in this saga of our history, right, that has been sort of not kind of not deleted totally, obviously, but has been kind of made very little of, right? Is the fact that all of us, doesn't matter what our color, right? What our the color of our eyes, the texture of our hair, the texture of our skin, the color of our skin, whether we're tall, short, well built, petite, whatever we are, right? Whatever we are, we're actually closely, very closely connected to one another, right? Why? Why? Because the ancestor of all of us, right, goes back to one of these one of these handful of continents, right, that we talked about, and we talked about their development, and that is Africa. Right? So the first thing that we ought to realize, right, yeah, is not only the fact that, hello, the species comes on Earth, right, and begins to grow on Earth, and after Earth has formed through millions of years, and all the things that it had shared and the history that it shared through millions of years until until it comes as early as 600,000 years ago, right? Because, I mean, you see how long it took for everything to get ready for us, right? Yeah, for us to begin exploiting Earth, right? So what you have to keep in mind, first of all, right, is, well, how long did it take for us to get to this point, i.e. 600,000 before Common Era, right? Yeah, we went through millions of years, right? So we're very, 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 very latecomers, right? Quite latecomers on this planet, right? Um, and not only that, right? But 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 conditions were such that we all grew in one planet, right? And that planet is Africa, of course, right? Right. So one of the things that Mercator map that was telling you about, and the problematics with that, and how big is Africa compared to the rest of the world and the rest of the continents, and so on and so forth, right? And how biased that projection is, right? Well, this is another inherent bias, right? In that projection, right? In that we were all developed, right? Modern Homo sapiens, right? The thinking man that we are, and believe me, this part of it, right? I mean, really, my friends, it is really everybody's circumstances, especially in these days, is different. We know that the riches are sort of accumulated in the hands of a few. Excuse me, please. And we know that there is a lot of inequity on Earth, right? And in our world, right? In our city, just take it and go farther and farther, greater in your conceptualization of what it is that we're dealing with, right? And then realize, my friends, that one of the best gifts, right? One of the best gifts that we were given was the fact that we were actually, sapiens, right? That we were thinking men, right? And women, right? And that gift developed, right? And while we were living in our original abode in Africa, right? So okay, and we say 600,000 years ago, right? In the Paleolithic period, right? Homo sapiens developed, right? And we remember that we are dealing here with our Stone Age period, right? Which is the very definition of Paleolithic, right? Paleo meaning old, and lithic meaning Stone Age, right? In the Paleolithic area, it was in the Paleolithic era, that we moved out of Africa, that we migrated out of Africa, right? Late, right? In the Paleolithic era. Please forgive me. Okay, so when was that, right? We began migrating from almost, center east, center of Africa, or further south, east, right? Um, we went, we went through Sinai, yeah, one theory has it, and other theories have different directions, and we will see it right now. But that we went out of Africa when, at a time that we were still at at the Stone Age, right, at the Paleolithic, late, very, very late Paleolithic period, right, i.e., 40,000 years ago, right, that we sort of began our journey out of Africa. So again, you see, compared to the history of Earth and whatnot, and we have not gone into the universe, right? We didn't start there, right? The whole thing is very young, right? We are extremely, extremely young. It took a long time for us to get to here, right? To here, right? It took a long time for us even to get to here, right? So we, right, as Homo sapiens, right, it is our duty now, right? It is our duty now to think all these time took for it to get us ready and get us here, right? And while we go through this history, you realize how little time it's taking for us to destroy the whole thing, right? To totally destroy the whole thing. Okay, so my friends, this was our roots, right? And then, as I told you, I have assigned for you fantastic videos that you can follow, and your readings as well. So this is the way we began moving through the continents, right, of former Pangea, right, that had been by now become continents as a whole, right? So, and what was our tool, right, when we were living, right? We were still in this hunting and gathering period, right? As you will see in your videos, right? Our men used to go hunting, and our women used to go sort of picking berries, right? And that was, right, the very, very and of course, as we will see, seafood, right? And that was the diet, right, of our ancestors, a very good diet on some level, right? And their tools, right, were, right, Paleolithic tools, right? They were Stone Age tools. And you can see the sort of tools that they constructed for themselves. You can see, for instance, here or here, you can guess that these are arrowheads, right? But then, this one here, it's probably a different tool, and this one here, it's probably yet another tool, right? And of course, by the time that we become Homo sapiens, right, one of the leaps that takes place in our evolution, right, is the fact that from being on our feet and legs, as our ancestors, the gorillas, did, right? Mind you, my friends, I am teaching you an evolutionary history, right? I am an agnost, right? That means that I don't have gnosis, which means that I don't have knowledge. That A negates it, right? And gnosis is knowledge. Agnost is someone who does not have knowledge of what? Of God, right? Or God, right? So anyway, I will be teaching this course on a secular, obviously, kind of basis. All right. So our ancestors, one of the best things that happened to us besides the fact that we became thinking, of course, the other thing was that we began to stand up, right, from our legs, from our gorilla ancestors who sort of walked with the four on four legs, so to speak, right? We stood up, right, and we had the use of our hands. We freed our hands, right, and so these hands became the tool, right, of Homo sapiens, right, through their history, right, through their history. So, yeah, to this day, right. Okay, so we began to we began going out of Africa, right, around 40,000 years ago, and there are different. We'll get to the different theories about how we went out to Africa, but at this time, right, we are still in our hunting and gathering mode, right? So and because of the fact that the only protection, obviously, that we have, right, from all the natural elements around us, right, it is ourselves. In other words, we have to also protect each other, right, and we cannot sort of begin migrating in big bands and whatnot, right? I mean, to these days we can, but in the hunting and gathering period, resources were much more limited, right, than today. Productivity, obviously, where there was very little of, right? So anyway, you have small bands of people, right, about 30, 40, that follow, right, in the hunting and gathering period, right, this sort of the cycles of plant growth, right? I mean, you sort of exhaust the berries, right, of one part of your land, right, and you pack up everything, right, and you go to another part of your land where where you can still find berries and so on and so forth, and sustain yourself. So in order to sustain yourself, in other words, you had to be constantly in the move, right? And imagine being constantly on the move, right? Imagine whether can you hold belongings if you are constantly on the move, right? I mean, even to this day, right, you want to travel someplace, you can only take one suitcase, at most two, right? So there is a reason right, that you cannot travel, right? What that traveling, right, is not conducive to what? To accumulating property. You are constantly on the move, and you cannot keep taking the riches that you have made, right, from place to place. You need to take care of yourselves first, right? And there is no time for, or no possibility for, accumulating property, neither really wealth, right? So you come out of Africa, right? Our ancestors come out of Africa, And what are the theories that we have as far as coming out of Africa is concerned? There are three groups of theories basically. One of the ones that we have been sort of used to is that it took a single wave of dispersal. So you take your blue sort of arrows and you follow them, right? So as I said, you're coming either in north central. I said east central, sorry, and central Africa, right? And you are following through with the blue lines. Either you're coming that way, you're coming this way, whatever way you're coming, you join here, right? And you go to the this is India, remember, this is India, right? To the coastal lines of India, and then you go all the way through Indonesia and so forth, and we will do our geography next, and you get to Australia, right? And here you separate, and again here you separate. A bunch of you go to Europe, bunch of you go further east in Asia, right? So that's one sort of theory, that it all happened in one wave. But it all happened in one wave, right? One of the other things that is very important to remember is that originally, right, a part of us followed the sea, right, on the coastlines, so that sort of nutrition was aplenty, right, in the seas, right? But others, as you see, they went through the land routes, which, as we will see, were an important sort of part of communication for the ancient world as it is today for our modern world. So anyway, so the next theory is that there were multiple waves, and if you follow your red lines, right, you will see a part comes here from the Sinai Peninsula. We'll get the details of it better in our geography thing sort of session. From Sinai here, the Sinai. No, I'm sorry. Sinai Peninsula, right? Right? Sinai Peninsula. And you see how you move, right? And since it is not just one wave, there are multiple waves. Another wave comes this way, right? So this is the second theory of multiple waves, right? And then, and finally, we have, oh, sorry, my friends, bear with me, okay. We have this last theory of recurrent episodes of back into Africa migrations as well, right? These are the ways that 40,000 years ago, right? So this is 160,000 years ago, right? This is how it went, right? There was a Mount Toba eruption, right? 74,000 years ago, man here, right? And that had implications for the movement of our populations, as you will see during your videos, right? So that is the first, right? One of the first deleted memories, so to speak, constantly, right? in our notions of where we are, who we are, and where are we coming from, and how are we connected or not. And if we had any doubt about whether or not what happens in China, right, affects us in, it's not, we are not on the map even, right, here in New York, right, well, this is the ocean, right, you guys. So, if we ever wonder about that, about whether or not, excuse me, bear with me, about whether or not, the whole issue of where are we, who are we, where are we coming from, how are we connected, are we connected, what difference does it make whether we're short or tall or or obese or not obese. Of course, health-wise it does make a difference, right? In this latter case, right? Or we have curly hair or blonde or we were all originally dark, right? You know that, right? Okay, so we were all originally dark, and this it was through these movements only, right, through these movements and coming into new climatic conditions, right, that we gradually began to lose our beautiful tan, right, and we adopted other beautiful colors, right. So anyway, my friends, if in these sort of heart-wrenching times, right? If you have to argue, if you get engaged in arguments and whatnot about who we are and the notions of us versus them and whatnot, just ask, just stop and ask your fellow man or woman, right? Do you know where we are coming from? Do you have any idea where we are coming from, right? Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so during this period, right, we started 40,000 years ago. During this hunting and gathering period, it is during that period, right, that we begin to it is during that period also that we begin to develop our speech, right? The clink language, for instance, right, is supposed to be one of the first. One argument has it that it is one of the first, and in your videos you will see about populations who are still in the hunting and gathering mode in small parts of Africa. And you see, in terms of civilizational discourse, as far as that is concerned, you will see that you will have to question, right, what it means, why does this civilizational discourse itself also, right, with this evolutionary concept, evolutionary dimensions that it assumes for itself, and we will go over them in a second, right? Why does this civilizational discourse look down upon, right, our hunting and gathering societies, right, as if they didn't have law, as if they didn't have art, as if they didn't have religion, right, as if they didn't have culture, right, their dances, right? Their social stratification, um, right? And in some case, as we will see, some of the elementary dimensions of what we consider civilization, right, um, are also there in our hunting and gathering societies to these days, right? So one of the questions is, why are we privileging this civilizational discourse, and we call other populations who are still in the hunting or gathering period, right? Or in the farming, you're still making a living out of agriculture, right? And so on and so forth, right? Why are we looking at them askance, so to speak, right? Not privileging them the position that they ought to assume, right? So okay, so then it is during these voyages of discovery, right, of the human race, so to speak, right, that um, that um, that speech develops, right, and our hunting and gathering is the hunting and gathering period of our history, right, until, remember, 40,000 years ago, 40,000 until to 10,000 before Common Era, right, where it is the end of the Paleolithic period, right, the end of the Old Stone Age, right, the end of Old Stone Age. Excuse me, bear with me. Okay, the end of Old Stone Age, right? When we begin, right? We begin, as we will see, set to settle, right? Okay. So towards the end of this Paleolithic period, right? Um, it's like even passes, right, the Paleolithic period, right? In 10,000 BCE, it's going further ahead in 7,000 BCE, but even not then, in 3,000 BCE, right, we see already various societies. Sorry, I don't know how that appeared again, my friends. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. So, and it is during this period, for instance, that in the British Isles, right, we begin to get, in the late Stone Age, huge stone monuments called megaliths, right? And where we think and that they were constructed for deciphering the movement of the sun and the moon, right? We will see specimen of it. What we saw already are cave paintings, right? And the symbols and symbolisms of importance to our ancestors. And in Wiltshire, southern England, right, you see an example of what is called a henge, right? A Stonehenge, where you see huge sort of megaliths, which is exactly what it is, right? Again, mega, right? Big, and lith, stone, huge stones, right? Are carried and sort of creates a calendar. for our ancestor in the uh, in the in the beginning of the historic period, right? We remember the art, and here is the heart, and this is again, you see the movements of the sun, the way it is reflected, right? Now, once the sun comes to where you see it here, it is 7 o'clock at night, or maybe it is 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Depending on whether or not there is a moon there. I don't know whether that's a moon or not, right, my friends? So, okay, to move on, right? Again, this is in a different light, right? The Stonehenge monuments, right? Okay. So 10,000 BC, we say that the Paleolithic age finishes, right? And the Neolithic age, right, appears, right? And that is when we have the first stirrings of agriculture, right? But you can just imagine what might have happened, right, in their movements, right, in different parts of the globe, right, and gradually, right, men realizes that for instance, yeah, they had consumed some fruits here, for instance, while they were staying there as hunting and gathering, and then went and come back and went and come back, and then they saw, for instance, that that some of the seeds that they had thrown on the ground, right, all of a sudden is sort of, that's not the right word, but kind of blooming, right? And then they realize, perhaps we can do that, right? Because perhaps the thing that is done by nature can be done by us, right? And they said, okay, we plant these seeds, right? And of course, once they began to plant these seeds, they realized that, hey, they don't have to move, because they can plant enough seeds to feed themselves. Not only can they feed themselves, but they gradually can feed a greater population, right? More than 30 and 40, right? And so they said, okay, we settle, right? Why pursue this hard life of constantly being on the move, right? We settled. And they settled, right? And they saw, for instance, I'm just, giving you examples, right? They saw that there are goats, right, that come and come close to them, and they take their they eat their garbage, right? And they see that, every time they put their garbage out, these guys come and start eating it. So they said, why don't we just keep them, right, for us, yeah? And because they had already figured out that they can get their clothing from their skin, they can get milk from them, and so on and so forth, right? And have them multiple themselves, right? Multiply themselves, and you can eat their meat, and so on and so forth. So they decided to settle, right, in the Neolithic period, right, and where we see the first stirrings of agriculture, my friends, right? And just to tell you how important this period was and has been throughout our lives, right? To begin with the was, sorry, I need to, right? To begin with the was, right? how important agriculture was to our ancient civilization and to the modern civilization, right? That is still, it is agriculture that is feeding us, right? Um, that's how we get our hamburgers, okay? They are made in, they are made by McDonald's with all kinds of, hormones and whatnot, and everything added to them to make them really delicious, right? Um, but industrial as we are, right? We still get the meat from the farms, right? The bread is still, the wheat and the grain and the corn and everything, right? Everything that feeds us, right? One obviously is coming from the agriculture and the nature in actually also around us, right? So we begin planting and cultivation of grains. Again, we are told it happens in the Middle East, right? And we have yet to, remember, we have yet to examine this concept. Around 10,000 BC in the New Stone Age, right? Neolithic period, in the New Stone Age. So what else does it happen? As I said, what else happens? As I said, we around 500 before Common Era, 8,500 years before Common Era, we first domesticated sheep, right? We first domesticated sheep, and we now can make our our population, right, even greater, right? Because as we will see, once we domesticate sheep, we come to domesticate cow, then we can plow the earth with the cow, right? And we learn all kinds of other techniques in our agricultural evolutions. Sorry. Okay, you guys, bear with me again. I am going to use this one. Okay, so, okay, so, but not every part of, not all of us on this movement, right, settled at the same time. Not all of us went through this process of, Paleolithic to Neolithic period at the same time, really, yeah, right? Some parts of the world, right, already not only done their agriculture, they had domesticated, they had grown, right? And then they had engaged. Once you produce enough for yourself, right, then you are sustaining yourself, right? Right? Your subsistence. Let me check, my friend, whether subsistence, I'm checking on my other computer, right? Yes, correct, subsistence. You're engaging in subsistence farming, right? You're just producing enough for your own community. But then there comes a time, right, where you can grow a lot more, right? You can grow more than you need, right? Then then you begin to stratify your population, right? Then you begin to get, farmers, and then you need, you need artists and this and that, and then, gradually you need, people have enough, a group of population produces, right, this agriculture, right, in order to sustain cities, right? Cities where part of the population, right, part of the population, a good part of the population, gets engaged in other activities besides farming, right? They begin to make art. They begin to study, right? They begin to study the skies, right? The stars. They begin to, a big man appears, right? A sort of a king-like figure appears to protect the wealth that is being created and whatnot, right? And you get your cities and you make walls around it, right? Again, you need an army and people who are not engaged in agriculture, right? In order to make a city running and so on, and keep it safe. And then a priest develops, right? Because all through this, anyway, you have been thinking, right? All through your travels, all through these, adventures that you have been having while you were moving from part to part, or when you were settled, right? You have always been thinking, right? You have been always looking at the skies and thinking, right? Why, right? Why do tornadoes, for instance, right, destroy our lives, right? Why do floods, right, destroy our lives, right? And so on and so forth, and there are all these issues dealing with your existence, right, that you cannot answer, right? Where is God? Who is God? What is God? Right? And you need someone, right, who at least pretends to have the answers for you, right? And of course, through all of this, right, you have settled, there is the city is growing, and through all of this, what you're doing is, accumulating property, right? Yeah, as much as you can, right? Yeah, and even, in some societies, you take it with you, right? When you die, you take it to the grave, right? When you die. Society becomes diversified. You begin to, you're producing enough for your own community, right? But there is too much. You produce your own cities. Yeah, there are craftsmen in the cities. They come traders. They take your produce and what you produce, which is not here, and they take it to here, and they take it to here, and they bring back stuff, right? And on and on. And what do you have? You have trade going on, right? I.e., my friends. Okay. Hello? Okay, I think it has frozen. My friends. Yeah, I can move and then clean it up later. Okay, so you have your first cities, right? And one of the very first cities that we have, right, is the city of Jericho, right? in as you can see, in close to contemporary Jordan, to the west of Jordan, right, which was constructed, right, Jordan, we are told it's in the Middle East, right, one of the first cities in the world, right, is coming, right, from this part of the world, right? Okay, Jericho. And here you see an aerial photograph of it, right? And you see that the design has, this is 8,000 years ago, right? And you have to imagine that there must be, you know, sciences, right, at work here, right, to construct, right, in this city. You can be sure that you have engineers, right, in this city, right. You can be sure there are people who you architects, right, in the city, and so on and so forth, right. Sciences develop, crafts develop, and so on and so on. So then we come to our notion of civilization, right? What is a civilization, right? And then we have agreed, right, that the first basic thing about civilization is that it has to have an agriculture that sustains itself, right? Just as we do in 21st century New York City, right? Our lives, right, no matter how modern we are, right, we are still dependent on agriculture, right? Cities, right? I mean, agricultural settlements are agricultural settlements, but because they are only preoccupied with agriculture, and they don't have time for other business of, areas of life, right? Then and they can sustain an urban center, then you get your urban centers. The minute you get urban centers, and meanwhile you're accumulating wealth, right? You're accumulating wealth, and you're becoming gradually a patriarchal society, right? Because in order to keep that wealth, patriarchy, right? Patriarchy, right? In order to keep that wealth, right, in your family, you need to know, who is the pater of the family, right? To keep the wealth in patriarchy develops here. Private property develops here. Some of our ills develop the minute we get into settlement. But then we have religion. We begin to codify on some level, right, our spiritual world, right. We begin to codify, right, our relationships to authority, to one another, to different groups, right? You begin to trade with each other, right, on an unprecedented level, as we will see, right? And when you trade with one another, you're not only trading goods, but you're also trading ideas, right? So, my friends, so remember we were told that that Western civilization was born in the Middle East. Remember? Okay. So here we begin to discuss our geography, but and since we are going to be dealing with each of these centers of civilization, this river valley civilization independently, I won't go into the details of it, and we will see it on the map in a second. Yeah, and where are the four centers of civilization, right? Well, we see it here on this map. To begin with, you have Mesopotamia. Remember the land between two rivers where Sumer is, right? One of the first civilizations of right in this civilizational definition of our history, right? One of the first civilization in which sort of all of the issues that we will be discussing, right, that or we have been briefly touching about, writing, law, sciences, arts form, right, religion, and so on and so forth, takes shape, right? All the elements of civilization, right? Writing and religion, law and trade, agriculture, social stratification, and urbanization, right, my friends? Let's see. Oh my god, it takes a long time to do it this way. Okay, sorry. Okay, my friends. Okay, so river valley civilizations, you get Sumer and Mesopotamia, and we remember Tigris and Euphrates. We're going to go more into it. Africa and Egypt, right? The Nile River Valley civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, and the Chinese or Huanghe River, Yellow River civilization. So this is, as we said, the first sort of Mesopotamia, right? And this, of course, is Egypt, and we'll get to Egypt again, separately again, right? But I want you to keep in mind when we come to Egypt that this is the delta of Egypt, right? And because the source of the Nile, the river Nile in Egypt, is Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria, right? Which I hope you also will see in your videos, right? Because the source is here. This is considered Upper Egypt. I'm sorry. Okay. Right, Upper Egypt, well, we have it written here, right? This is considered Upper Egypt, and this is considered Lower Egypt, right? And this is the famous Sinai Peninsula, as I told you, and settlement, as we will see in our videos, settlements around the Nile Valley also begins to take shape around 8,000 before Common Era, right? And then I want you to pay attention to the Valley of the Kings, the major cities, Thebes, Memphis, right? Giza, I want you to pay attention, and the Sinai Peninsula, which is the only part of the land at the breakup of Pangaea, right, my friends, which connects Africa to Asia, which remained in order to connect Africa to Asia, right? And the third civilization, right, is the Indus Valley civilization. You see the Indus Valley civilization, right, that 5 different rivers, right, come to the fore, right, in order to in order to form the Indus Valley, right? And this whole area is called Punjab. Those of you who have Indian, Pakistani, South Asian backgrounds, right? You know that this means 5 waters, right? Because Panj, right, is the Persian word for 5. We will get to this later, and they are, as you can guess, as you can kind of figure out, right? 5 Panj, 5 Panj, yeah. They are coming from the same, and they're cognates, right, of the same root. All right, so and that was the Indus Valley civilization, which developed right around 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE. Again, of course, you pay attention that the numbers are coming down, right? And then finally, last but not least, is the Chinese civilization of Huanghe, or the Yellow River, and of course there is also Zhengzhou, right, the other river of China, right, which, as you can see, this is Shanghai, right, and it is in the north, that they run in the northern half of China, as you can see. And so I think I will stop here, my friends, and then we will pick up our discussion later on. Okay? I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this one. All right. Be of good cheer and health. Bye.